Hello everyone, and welcome to our first installment of Voices of Clarke County, where every other week we will bring you stories and anecdotes straight from the archive about people who lived and worked right here in the county. My name is Melanie, and I am the archivist here at the Clarke County Historical Association, and it is my job to uncover and document these stories, and I find it absolutely fascinating. So today's episode is going to be the first of two parts, and we're going to be delving into a series of letters written between the Clarke family from DC and Katherine Moore of Millwood, and these take place around the 1890s. Now, earlier this year, we actually had these on display downstairs, and so thanks to COVID, we had to take them down, but hopefully, once things are able to open back up, we can put them back on display so everybody can get to see them. But I have with me today the file of transcripts that accompany it. We'll refer back and forth to them as we go. So this is an interesting story because it starts with the way I found the letters. And I found them in a collection of things belonging to Stella Moore, who you've seen on our Facebook page numerous times. She was a teacher here in the county for years and years and years. Her family was here forever, and her estate bequeathed a lot of her things to us when she passed. And so these letters were part of that bequeath. And as I was going through and just inventorying what we had and seeing what was in there, I came across one letter. And of course, I came into the story right in the middle, which gave me a whole bunch of questions. But the first letter that I came across was written from Ezra Clarke, who at the time, I had no idea who he was. And it's dated July 4th, 1893. And it was sent from Seattle, Washington, which was very interesting. So I had no idea. And reading through it, he says here, and I'm quoting this, "Many times I thought I would write to you and acknowledging the graceful and kindly letter you sent to me some months ago, but I've had such a painful time where I bring myself to think and write concerning dear John, that I draw back from the essay." Now, when I read this, I thought, oh, this is going to be good. It's a dear John letter. Something happened. Historical drama is, of course, fascinating and my favorite. And so I was immediately hooked, and I started looking through the letter to see what was going on. And he goes on to talk to her, and he says, "There was something very sweet and beautiful about John's fondness for you. I have a bundle of letters, very many of which he speaks of hearing from you or writing to you." And it just kind of keeps going on, and it's very affectionate, and there's so much emotion behind this letter. You can just kind of feel it when you read it. And it's signed, "Accept for yourself and your sisters the affectionate regard of yours most sincerely, Ezra Clarke," which is a very familiar greeting. So he must have known her, and the letter kind of makes that clear. But as we kind of went through, and I continued to search through the collection, I found more letters that kind of followed the similar theme here. And as it turns out, I have letters from 4 members of the Clarke family. So Ezra and his wife Sylvia had 4 boys. They had Charlie, they had Eugene, they had John, and they had Ezra Jr., whose nickname was Westcott. And I have letters one from Ezra, I have a few from Sylvia, I have the most from Eugene, he's the oldest son, and then I have some from John, who's kind of in the middle there. And I think I have about maybe a dozen letters all together. I have absolutely none from Katherine to the Clarke family, but only from the Clarke family to Katherine. And they're very interesting. So they appear to be close family friends. We have the boys stay with Katherine all the time. In Millwood, she's living at Upton, which is still standing. And the boys are staying there, and they're always excited to see her. And as I was reading, before I kind of did some research and figured out who exactly they were and what their ages were and everything, I kind of thought maybe there was a romantic interest. Maybe Katherine was John's romantic interest. He writes, let's see if I can find one here. He writes to her, and it sounds like a child writing to someone they're idolizing. He's very young. Well, I guess he's in high school, which doesn't make him that young, respectively, comparatively. But he's relatively young, and turns out Kate is his parents' age. So I was a little bit concerned because my initial gut assumption, which, you know, they're never right, are they? My initial gut assumption was that, like I said, there was some sort of romantic interest. But as you kind of read into these letters and you do some research, you realize that she was more of like an aunt figure or like a grandmother figure. She never married, so they weren't her kids. They didn't have relationships with her children, relationships with her husband. I'm not really sure kind of how they met each other. Ezra and Sylvia are from New York. Kate is from here in Millwood. Her family has been here for generations. So I'm not sure yet. That research is still coming, so we'll see what we can find. But this letter here from John in 1891, this was a couple years before the last letter, and he writes very much like a child, and he says, you know, "Dear Miss Kate, I received a very nice letter from you last Tuesday, I think. I am quite sorry that I did not answer before this, but I have been sick and unable to go out for a week. The high school football team gained another victory on last Friday. I was very sorry that I could not go to Sunday school yesterday, and neither did Westcott, as Mom thought we had better stay home." Westcott, again, is the youngest brother. I think Christmas is coming soon. I wonder if there will be snow there during the holidays. Please excuse the shortness of this letter, but I cannot think of anything more. I think Mama will add a few lines and the time to expect me. And I don't know if you can kind of see this here, but the way that it's transcribed, that's a little backwards probably, but the way that it's transcribed here is exactly the way that it shows up in the original letter. So each sentence is a line, and it's just line after line after line in a very childish manner, very, very much unlike his brother's letters, and who's only a few years older than him. Let's see, and we have his brother, here we go. And his brother will write pages and pages and pages, which is very interesting, especially considering John seems to have the stronger attachment to Katherine than Eugene does, although his bond with her is certainly very strong as well, so we can't discredit that one. But I'm not going to read this one to its fullest because it's several pages long, but he fills it up page after page after page of just solid text, and he's writing her just about his day. He's actually going to college at Cornell up in New York. It had just been established not too many years before this. So he's at Cornell. At some point he writes about the Founders Day celebration where they're celebrating kind of an anniversary of Cornell's founding. And he writes to her about his studies. He's an engineer, it looks like, and he's taking all of these electrical engineering classes in the 1890s, which is really fascinating. And he just writes to her and tells her about his day. He talks about his friends. He talks about the girls he talks to. But he talks about wanting to come home and visit her and to visit his family. And even though I still don't know yet what the relationship is between the Clarke family and Katherine, it's incredibly strong. The whole family will write to her. The mother writes, Sylvia. She gets letters from the husband, Ezra. 2 of the boys I have letters from. Maybe more wrote to her. If they did, we don't have the letters anymore. But the relationship is so close and so interesting. And I think we're going to leave it there. So join us again next time. We'll be back in about 2 weeks with the final touches to the story, and we'll delve into more of the personal life of who all these people were, what they were writing about, and what happens within the series of letters. So thanks for tuning in. Let us know what you think, and catch us again next time. Bye-bye.